episode, I have Dylan, who is the owner of Ink Press Digital. Dylan, for the loan officers that are watching or listening to this episode, why should they listen today?
Well, we write for 15 plus accounts across the mortgage industry, specifically on LinkedIn. So we are the voice behind a lot of the leaders you guys are seeing on the internet. We've helped a lot of the biggest people on the platform get to where they are today. And, while it's all of their thoughts, their insights, the mechanism that allows them to leverage their personal brand and get the results that they need, get the visibility that they need, and get
That's
in front of
awesome.
more
I
people.
love that. And with these like CEOs and more leaders in the mortgage space, if you had to recommend one social media platform for them to get on, what would you recommend and why?
It's a great question. So I would recommend LinkedIn for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the fastest growing social media platform in 2026. So you get to ride the wave of a lot of people joining that, meaning that effectively you can grow an audience at a faster rate because there's more and more people joining every day. And there's also I think less than 1% of people that are on the platform are creating content. And so there's a big vacuum. And so, can achieve levels of growth on the platform like you could on YouTube in 2008 or, on Facebook in 2011 or what have you. From the perspective of it's much easier to grow because it's not a saturated platform like Instagram or X, Twitter. Those are more established and more difficult. So those two reasons are pretty strong. Thirdly, it is very much a business focused platform, which means that people are comfortable talking about business. They're comfortable spending money. They're comfortable initiating conversations that will result in a transaction ultimately. And so you can get on there and you can have conversations with people that are ultimately going to
I
do
love that.
business with you.
And sorry to dive so deep into this, but if these mortgage executives are going on LinkedIn, should they do text, images, or videos, or should they do all three? And yeah, I just want to hear your thought on that.
It's a great question. Long form writing is, I'm biased obviously, but I really feel like that is the future. The platforms like Substack, LinkedIn that are really leaning into the long form writing element. It's a great way to every post is effectively a sales letter. And so you can really, if you can write compellingly, you can really convince people to be on your side and they'll learn to know, like, and trust you very quickly. Images are great and you can pair that with the long form writing. So the more that you can put your face out there, the quicker people will learn to know, like, and trust you. And then when it comes to video, there's, you get a little bit of less reach on LinkedIn using video, primarily because oftentimes I think people are scrolling on LinkedIn
Yeah.
at work or something like that. And so they don't want to give away that they're consuming content. And so they will scroll past the video. That's my guess. I think video is also great. If you are already creating video content, then it makes sense to have a day or two a week where you repost it to LinkedIn. But I wouldn't, if you were primarily targeting LinkedIn as the platform, I wouldn't stress it too much. I've never done any videos and we've grown, our business immensely in the last year and it's all come from LinkedIn.
Okay,
It hasn't
that's an
come from anywhere
awesome. I've
else.
never thought about it that way, so that's awesome. So LinkedIn has articles, right? And I haven't used it in forever, so even I'm learning, and so is my audience. Would you recommend if a loan officer does a blog, should they put that blog on their website and then post it to LinkedIn, or should they just use LinkedIn articles for more of like blog type content?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it's important to have, that blog on your own website for ranking and SEO and whatnot. But truthfully, posting on a personal blog is a little bit like, yeah, what's a good analogy here? What you don't want to do is get on LinkedIn and say, hey, everybody, come to this party that I'm having, right? Because LinkedIn is the party, for example. Everyone's together, they're chatting and they're all on the platform and trying to tell them to go somewhere else can be a little difficult. Yeah, repurpose the content. I would post it as honestly, I would split it into posts because if you have a long form article, you have 800 words, 1,000 words, that's 3 solid posts that you can create. And that's the way that is going to get the most views and the most impressions and get in front of as many eyeballs as possible because then you're in a position where people are scrolling their feed and you're there versus the articles you have to click into and it navigate away from the feed, which is just a tiny bit of resistance, that extra barrier that might slow somebody down from doing that, or they might decide that
Yeah,
it's
I've
not worth
heard
the
that. I think
hassle.
maybe just talking to you about this, I think maybe you tell me, would it make sense to have that blog on your website? And then instead of putting the link on LinkedIn, you just also create it as like a post instead of an article. Would that be better? Because then you're growing both.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. The content that you write on any platform should be, part of your evergreen library, right? And you should repurpose it as much as you can, in as many places as you can. And so, you write one good long form piece of content that turns into 3 LinkedIn posts. If those do really well, sit in front of the camera and expand on those and create some video content from it if
Yeah.
you want to, right? And so it's the difficult part is the initial writing, the thinking, and putting that upfront effort into building that content library, and then you can repurpose it once you've done the writing and the heavy
Awesome.
lifting
Okay.
however
I
you
thank
like.
you for all the tips, especially for the audience. I just have a couple more questions because I want to get people coming to you if they're
Sure.
interested. Do you have just a case study? You don't have to mention names of where you helped the mortgage executive get to this or it resulted in this, if that makes sense that you can share.
Sure. So we launched with a small lender. They were doing about 500 million in origination volume when we started working together. And about 9 months later, they were about 800 million in origination volume. While I would say the majority of that came from LinkedIn, not all of it did, so we can't take all the credit. But what it allows you to do when you're creating content, you're building that narrative, and you're sort of crafting this recruiting article or approach. It allows you to have those recruiting conversations at scale instead of getting on the phone with a loan officer and saying, these are why we're great. You should come work for us. Puts you in a position where you can have that conversation with hundreds of people at the same time, hundreds of loan officers, thousands even. And it allows you to scale your ideas, your methodology, your thinking process across the internet. And so yeah, effectively, it's
I
relationship
love that.
building
And,
at
and if
scale.
people, mortgage executives or maybe loan officers, bosses, if they want to find you, where's the best place to get in contact with you?
Sure. So LinkedIn is where I'm the most active. I'm on there all the time. We have a website, but increstdigital.com. LinkedIn is always easier. Shoot me a DM, let's chat. And from the perspective of whether you're an LO or an executive, there's a lot of leverage that you can do through building your personal brand, and positioning yourself in a way that you are an expert. And so maybe for loan officers, it's not direct to consumer. Maybe it is content that speaks directly to real estate agents, financial advisors, CPAs, anything that's going to be B2B, right? Anyone that can become a referral partner. That's a really powerful way to do it. And we have had relationships with loan officers in which we write content for them and then we do outreach for them based using Sales Navigator to target financial advisors in specific geographical areas. So there's so many amazing things that you can do with LinkedIn where you're just starting conversations, sending them DMs, getting in front of the right people, and being able to build those connections. And same
That's
with
awesome. Okay, well,
executives.
Dylan, seriously appreciate you hopping on and sharing your insights, and hopefully this helped everybody that's listening or watching. But hope everybody has a great week, and thanks again, Dylan, for hopping on.
Thanks.